LeBron James has finally weighed in on the Jalen Brunson trade rumors, and his comments have caught the attention of the entire NBA world. With Brunson coming off a championship run, nobody expected LeBron to get involved, but what he said could completely change how fans view this entire situation. Let me break it down. Picture this. The New York Knicks win their first NBA title since 1973, beating the San Antonio Spurs in Game 5 on a Saturday night. Confetti is raining down on San Antonio's AT&T Center, and somewhere in California, LeBron James is watching it happen on a screen. The man who has defined winning at the highest level for 2 decades. 4 rings, 4 finals MVPs, is a spectator, and the player holding the trophy, a guy barely 6'1" who wasn't even supposed to be there. Jalen Brunson, nicknamed Captain Clutch and the King of New York. What capped that championship run was a Game 5 performance where Brunson scored 45 points on 14 of 27 shooting, 4 of 7 from deep, along with 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals, to bring the franchise its first title in 53 years. The crowd in San Antonio went silent. New York lost its collective mind. An estimated 2 million fans lined Broadway from Battery Park to City Hall in Lower Manhattan for the ticker tape parade that followed. And LeBron had thoughts, not quiet thoughts, not private ones. LeBron has spent decades establishing himself as the most vocal, most opinion-heavy superstar the NBA has ever seen. He'd already been publicly analyzing Brunson's game on his own platform, Mind the Game, dissecting what makes Brunson so dangerous, and breaking down the Knicks-Spurs series in real time. With the NBA Finals in full swing, LeBron and Steve Nash broke down the Knicks versus Spurs matchup as New York led 2-1. The man wasn't just watching, he was studying. Now here's the twist that makes this whole thing electric. LeBron James has direct, personal, documented ties to every key figure in this Knicks championship story. Knicks president Leon Rose was James's agent. William Wesley, known as Worldwide Wes, who serves as an executive vice president and senior basketball advisor for New York, has had a connection with James since his teenage years. And Brunson, he literally attended a LeBron James Skills Academy as a teenager, the same camp LeBron has used for decades to identify and cultivate the next generation of basketball talent. The King has had eyes on Brunson for a long time. So when LeBron makes a public announcement about a Jalen Brunson trade situation, it doesn't land in a vacuum. It lands in the middle of a web of relationships, competing interests, and the most turbulent free agency situation in NBA history. Because understand, LeBron James himself is the player being discussed in trade scenarios this summer, while the Lakers are doing what they can to improve their roster before James's decision for the 2026-27 season. ESPN's Brian Windhorst has floated a trade for Cleveland Cavaliers center Jarrett Allen that would send LeBron back home to Cleveland. And Windhorst didn't mince words about how quickly the Lakers would move. He said the Lakers would kill for Jarrett Allen, and that they would do that deal in 17/10 of a second. Now that's a vivid image. The same franchise that LeBron has called home for 8 seasons, that sweated through a deep playoff run together, would essentially hand him to Cleveland the moment a center upgrade became available. That tells you everything about where the power sits in this situation, and why LeBron's public comments about anything trade-related carry the weight of a hand grenade in a locker room. Let's make sure you're caught up on the full picture before we go deeper. The Lakers and the Cavaliers both enjoyed productive 2025-26 regular seasons, winning 53 and 52 games respectively, but both received wake-up calls in the playoffs. Despite LeBron's sustained year 23 greatness, the injury-plagued Lakers, playing without Doncic due to a hamstring issue, were swept 4-0 by the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference semifinals. So here's the league's all-time leading scorer, at 41, swept out of the playoffs, while a 29-year-old point guard from New Jersey is getting crowned in San Antonio. That irony is not lost on anyone. LeBron's response to all of it has been layered and careful. Since the offseason, James has dealt with sciatica, which disrupted and delayed the start of his 2025-26 campaign. And after all the rehab he endured to make it back, his days were filled with the preparation, maintenance, and recovery needed to play on a nightly basis. He gave signals earlier in the season that this could be his last go-round, including shouting out road cities on Instagram after playing what could be his final games there, but distanced himself from retirement talk during All-Star Weekend. The man is playing chess while everyone around him is playing checkers. Retirement, no comment. Trade, let's talk. And then he talks. What does LeBron specifically say about the Brunson situation? In his own words on his YouTube platform, the NBA Finals MVP, Jalen Brunson proved that small guards can still have a massive impact on winning at the highest level. Coming from LeBron James, a man who once dominated the league so thoroughly that teams built entire defensive schemes around his size and athleticism, that's not just a compliment, that's an acknowledgement. That's one king recognizing another. But LeBron's relationship to the Brunson trade story goes much deeper than just praise. The Knicks' current core, Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges, are all between 28 and 30, and as one team source told ESPN, building together. Adding LeBron to that core would shift the entire axis of that team. It would push New York into an immediate aggressive championship defense mode, and the people around LeBron, the same people who built that Knicks team, know exactly what that would mean. Here's where the trade announcement piece crystallizes. The Knicks were linked to a blockbuster move involving LeBron for months. That would make for the highest of thrills if James and New York actually won the title together, but it could hurt his standing with Knicks fans forever if the team failed, and he became known as the reason the franchise reconfigured what had been its most promising roster in decades. So the question hanging over everything is, what does LeBron actually say about disrupting that Brunson-led core? What is the announcement that set tongues wagging? LeBron makes clear that he sees Brunson's core as untouchable, not because he's told to, but because he understands basketball better than almost anyone alive. Luka Doncic himself has already reflected on what could have been with Brunson in Dallas, a conversation that gets to the heart of just how decisive the Brunson trade story really is. Because before Brunson was the king of New York, he was almost a different kind of trade chip. And the full story of how he became undisruptible starts a long time before that championship parade, the night Brunson hoisted that trophy in San Antonio. Three people in particular had very distinct reactions that tell you everything about this story. Stephen A. Smith, who has made a career out of going against the Knicks' best players, confessed he was going to beg for LeBron James before the Knicks' championship win. He was ready to plead with LeBron to come to New York and save the franchise. Then Brunson saved it himself, and Smith had to swallow every word. Josh Hart, Brunson's best friend, his Villanova teammate, his podcast co-host, had a different reaction. Hart took a direct shot at those who doubted Brunson, saying he was still waiting for somebody to say they was wrong, about someone who led our team to a championship in 53 years, and noted he was still waiting for something. Hart, the guy who knows Brunson better than anyone in that building, knew from day one that people were sleeping on his teammate. The vindication hit different. And then there was Becky Hammon, the ESPN analyst, who had publicly doubted Brunson's ability to lead a championship team, now found herself in the crosshairs of the entire Knicks fan base. Hammond's assessment after the championship was that Brunson proved history wrong and is an outlier, placing his name next to Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas, adding that he played brilliantly, especially down the stretch. But as Hart made clear, that apology or retraction. The Knicks' Jalen Brunson won't get a Becky Hammon apology after his NBA Finals run. The silence from those who got it wrong speaks louder than anything they could say. So LeBron's announcement about Brunson, the public statements, the video breakdowns, the acknowledgement of what Brunson represents isn't just casual chatter. It's LeBron James, a man who has been in trade conversations himself, staring at a 29-year-old champion and drawing a very public line in the sand about what that Knicks core should look like going forward. And when LeBron speaks, teams listen, front offices adjust, GMs pick up the phone. Because here's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath all of this. LeBron's agent Rich Paul told ESPN's Shams Charania that James wants to compete for a championship, that he knows the Lakers are building for the future and understands that, but he values a realistic chance of winning it all. That's the statement that opens every door, every trade rumor, every scenario where LeBron ends up somewhere new, including New York, including a situation where he'd be playing alongside the very player he's been publicly praising, the very player he helped train through his skills academy, the very player whose championship run his own agent was watching and reevaluating what LeBron's remaining career could look like. As ESPN's Ramona Shelburne reported, the Lakers had initial conversations with James's representative, but James has not even fully committed to returning next year in these conversations. Those discussions were described as simply keeping in touch. That's not a guy who's decided anything. That's a guy who's watching and waiting to see who makes the best offer. To understand why LeBron's comments about a Brunson trade carry the weight that they do, You need to understand how close Brunson came to never being in New York at all. This is where the story gets genuinely jaw-dropping, because the Dallas Mavericks had every opportunity to keep Brunson. They had the chance to trade him, extend him, and lock him up. They whiffed on every single one. Start at the beginning. Brunson was drafted in the second round in 2018, and rather than structuring his deal with a team option for the fourth year, which would have given Dallas the right to match any offer sheet as a restricted free agent in 2021, the Mavericks gave him a straight 4-year deal, enabling him to be an unrestricted free agent in 2022. That one contract structure decision set the dominoes falling for everything that came after. One clause, one oversight, and ultimately one championship parade through Manhattan that the Mavericks had to watch on TV. Because when 2021 came around and Brunson was eligible for an extension, the Mavs made the decision to hold off until after the trade deadline, in case they had the opportunity to trade for a star, as an extension would have prevented Brunson from being eligible to be traded before the deadline. They were holding him as a trade chip while simultaneously failing to treat him like someone worth keeping. That tension was building silently, even as Brunson was suiting up every night and playing his heart out in Dallas blue. The Mavs did eventually get around to offering Brunson an extension. Brunson reportedly informed the team in January that he was willing to sign an extension, but by the time Dallas offered him a 4-year, $55 million deal after the February trade deadline, the point guard's representatives laughed at it, not politely declined, not countered, laughed. The contract that the Mavericks thought would keep their young guard in Texas was so far below market value that it wasn't even worth a serious conversation. But here's the piece that gets under the skin of every Mavericks fan. Sources indicate that Brunson was actually prepared to sign a deal, but that it wasn't offered until it was, in the eyes of the Brunson family, too late. Rick Brunson later confirmed as much. "I told the Mavericks, once the season is started, there's no contract talk. But in January, I thought he did enough where he deserved the extension. I said, hey, take the money, man. He wants security. He wants to live here." And they declined. The Mavericks passed on extending a player who wanted to stay, and then were shocked when he left. And while all of that was unfolding internally, the Knicks were making moves. Dallas viewed New York as the franchise's primary competition for Brunson, particularly because of the long-standing relationships between the Brunson family and several key Knicks figures. As the 2022 trade deadline approached, murmurs reached Dallas that the Knicks were on the verge of hiring Brunson's father, Rick, as an assistant for head coach Tom Thibodeau. This wasn't just business, this was personal, family, community. The Knicks weren't just recruiting a player, they were offering a homecoming. The Mavericks eventually panicked when they realized New York wasn't just flirting with Brunson, that they were genuinely coming for him. Dallas did something remarkable. They tried to trade him. As the Knicks prepared to make their first NBA Finals appearance since 1999, new details emerged regarding failed 2022 trade discussions between the two franchises, involving Brunson before he signed in free agency. The Mavs were trying to get something back for a player they were already starting to lose. Those trade talks went nowhere. Multiple frameworks were discussed during negotiations. The Mavericks showed interest in several young Knicks players, including Emmanuel Quickley and Quentin Grimes. But across all of the different constructions, one common denominator kept surfacing. The Mavericks wanted first-round picks, and more specifically, their own future first-round selections that had previously been sent to New York in the controversial 2019 Kristaps Porzingis trade. The Knicks weren't going to give those back, not for a player they were about to sign for free. And that's exactly what happened. The talks collapsed. The deadline passed, and a few months later, during the 2022 offseason, Jalen Brunson signed with the New York Knicks. The deal that was widely panned as an overpay at the time has since become the most validated contract in franchise history. The Knicks got a player that the Mavs let walk for nothing. And the Mavericks? A Mavericks source told Shelburne, "I think Jalen had a loyalty to the Mavs because they drafted him, but the Knicks were his actual family. I don't think we fully grasped that." When Brunson arrived in New York, the reception was complicated. The Knicks fan base was desperate for relevance. They'd been wandering the wilderness for years. Big names, bigger disappointments, no hardware. And here comes this undersized guard from Dallas, a signing that many people criticized when it happened, with plenty of people doubting whether he could take the kind of leap the contract seemed to assume. The doubters were loud, the skeptics were organized, and Brunson didn't flinch. he just played. In 2025, he led the Knicks to their first Eastern Conference Finals appearance in 25 years. Then he kept going. In December of 2025, he averaged 36 points and 7 assists per game, leading the Knicks to a 10-4 record for the month, earning Eastern Conference NBA Player of the Month for the third time in his career. The numbers were relentless. The performances were back-to-back-to-back. And through all of it, Brunson was making a decision that would ultimately define everything. He left money on the table. On July 12, 2024, Brunson signed a 4-year, $156.5 million contract extension through the 2028-29 season. But he would have been eligible for a 5-year, $256 million contract in the 2025 offseason and chose to take less in order to help the team have more flexibility to make future moves. $100 million left on the table on purpose because he believed in what they were building and wanted to give the front office the tools to finish the job. That's the kind of buy-in you can't manufacture. That's what LeBron James watched from California and what he immediately understood. The playoff run that capped everything off was something the league hadn't seen in a very long time. The Knicks won 11 consecutive playoff games, including closeout victories over the Atlanta Hawks by 51 points in the first round, the Philadelphia 76ers by 30 points in the second round, and Cleveland by 37 points in the conference finals. That's not a team squeaking through. That's a team demolishing opponents. And Brunson was the engine driving every single one of those wins. The Cleveland sweep in the Eastern Conference Finals was particularly personal. In Game 1, Brunson recorded 38 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals, including 17 points in the fourth quarter and overtime, as he led a 44-11 Knicks run to overcome a 22-point deficit and defeat the Cavaliers 115-104. That's the kind of performance that gets talked about for decades. Down 22, Brunson puts the team on his back and engineers one of the great playoff comebacks of the modern era. And in the context of the LeBron story, that Cavaliers connection matters enormously because LeBron James was being discussed in trade scenarios involving Cleveland all summer. A proposed sign and trade had the Cavaliers receiving LeBron James, Bronny James, DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaRavia, Dalton Knecht, and a $28 million trade exception, while the Lakers got back Jarrett Allen, Dennis Schroeder, Dean Wade, and Sam Merrill. Cleveland was a suitor for LeBron, and Brunson just demolished Cleveland on his way to the title. The chess pieces keep moving. Luka Doncic, who now wears purple and gold after the Mavericks traded him to the Lakers, in one of the most controversial deals in recent NBA history, reflected on what could have been with Brunson. Doncic has been quoted on what it would have been very good to have Jalen Brunson alongside him in Dallas. A wistful acknowledgement from the very player whose presence in Dallas made the Mavericks feel comfortable delaying Brunson's extension. The irony cuts deep. Dallas held off on extending Brunson partly to preserve cap space and trade flexibility around Luka, and then they traded Luka anyway. And now Brunson has the ring that Luka's chasing. That backstory is exactly what LeBron understood when he started commenting on Brunson trades. LeBron has watched franchises mismanage talent his entire career. He's been on the receiving end of bad roster decisions, most famously in Cleveland the first time when the Cavaliers stripped away pieces around him and left him standing alone against teams built to win. He knows what it looks like when a franchise gets it right, and he knows what it looks like when they squander a generational player. The Mavericks squandered Brunson. New York didn't. And LeBron, in his comments and public breakdowns, is essentially saying out loud what every smart basketball mind is thinking. To understand LeBron's announcement about a Brunson trade in its full weight, you have to look at what he's actually watching. Not just the ring, not just the Finals MVP, but the system, the culture, and the infrastructure that made all of it possible. Because LeBron James doesn't watch basketball casually. He studies it. He produces content about it. He talks about it with Steve Nash on podcasts. He's essentially a basketball analyst with championship credentials, and what he's been watching the Knicks build is a model that any competitor would want to either join or replicate. The core that won the title wasn't assembled overnight. Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges, all between 28 and 30, were described by a team source as building together. That phrase matters. Not peaked together, not lucked into something together, building. Forward-looking, a group that got better every year because they committed to the process. trusted the coach, and let Brunson lead without second-guessing the hierarchy. Towns was the biggest addition and the most scrutinized. The Knicks traded for him just months after Brunson signed his team-friendly extension. The very flexibility Brunson created by leaving money on the table made Towns possible. A few months after Brunson's extension was signed, the Knicks traded for Karl-Anthony Towns. That's not a coincidence, that's a domino. That's a player understanding his role in a machine and helping to build the machine around himself. And then there's the coaching piece. Brunson's familiarity with head coach Tom Thibodeau stretched back to childhood, so far back that Brunson couldn't recall the first time the two had met, because whenever it happened, he was literally too young to form memories. That's a relationship that predates the NBA. That's a trust that doesn't have to be built from scratch. It was already load-bearing the moment Brunson walked into Madison Square Garden for the first time as a Knick. And the president of basketball operations? Leon Rose, the same man who used to be LeBron James's agent. Knicks president Leon Rose was James's agent. Rose didn't become a great executive overnight. He spent decades in the room with the best players and best agents in the world, understanding how talent thinks, what motivates it, what makes it stay, and what makes it leave. He brought all of that knowledge to New York, and when it came time to structure a situation around Brunson, Rose knew exactly what buttons to push. The result was a team that understood exactly what it was and played like it. In the 2026 playoffs, Brunson averaged 26 points and 6 assists per game. In the Eastern Conference Finals sweep of Cleveland, he averaged 25 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists per game, earning the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Those aren't one-series numbers. Those are sustained, repeated, high-pressure performances against the best teams in the Eastern Conference. That's what a system built correctly produces. A player who gets better in the biggest moments, not worse. Now here's something that reveals a lot about who Brunson is as a player and as a person. During the championship run, when the pressure was at its absolute max, he made a very deliberate choice. After going down 2-1 to the Atlanta Hawks in the first round, Brunson told the Inside the NBA crew on ESPN that he shut down social media. Some compared his actions to LeBron James's famous Zero Dark 30-23 method, referring to LeBron turning off his phone and social media during the postseason. Think about what that means. The NBA's newest champion studied LeBron's mental approach to playoff basketball so thoroughly that he adopted it wholesale. He saw the method, understood the discipline behind it, and applied it to his own situation. And it worked. Long forgotten due to the excitement of New York capturing the championship, the Knicks actually started their first series against Atlanta down 2-1. But after that game, they would only lose once more in the entire playoff run, which was Game 3 against San Antonio in the NBA Finals. The shutdown worked. The imitation of LeBron's mental discipline unlocked something. And when LeBron found out that Brunson had essentially borrowed his psychological playbook, he didn't dismiss it or feel mimicked. He doubled down on his public admiration. That moment, Brunson citing Zero Dark 30, LeBron responding with breakdowns of exactly why Brunson is dangerous. That's the moment this relationship between the two players moved from mutual respect to something that starts sounding like recruitment language. But let's talk about the championship itself, the NBA Finals against the San Antonio Spurs, because that's where the machine truly showed its teeth. In a tense NBA Finals series, Spurs phenom Victor Wembanyama got away with 2 fouls on Brunson that had New York fans absolutely seething. The biggest player on the planet, the 7'4" alien athletic French center who was supposed to be the future of basketball, was matching up against a 6' point guard from New Jersey. And somehow the small guy kept winning. Wembanyama's decision after the series ended became a whole other story. In the seconds after the Knicks clinched their first NBA championship in over 50 years, as New York erupted, Brunson walked over to Spurs coach Mitch Johnson with a towel draped over his shoulders and shook his hand, while Wembanyama walked away from Brunson and the Knicks. All the way from half court to the players' tunnel, the handshake snub set off a firestorm. Comparisons started flying immediately, and LeBron's name was at the center of them. Wembanyama's handshake snub drew parallels to then Cavaliers star LeBron James, walking straight into the tunnel, following Cleveland's loss to the Magic. In the 2009 Eastern Conference Finals, the then 24-year-old James declined to shake any Magic player's hands, even blowing off his Olympic teammate Dwight Howard, and later skipped his postgame availability. LeBron had done exactly what Wemby just did, and the basketball world went crazy drawing the line between them. What makes the LeBron-Wembanyama comparison particularly sharp is what LeBron himself said about it at the time. "It's hard for me to congratulate somebody after you just lose to them." James said of that 2009 ECF series, "I'm a winner. It's not being a poor sport or anything like that. If somebody beats you up, you're not going to congratulate them. That doesn't make sense to me." That quote, which is 17 years old, became the text message that everyone sent each other when Wemby walked into the tunnel. LeBron wrote the chapter. Wemby followed it. And Brunson, who shook the coach's hand, stood as the contrast to both. The dynamics here are layered. LeBron, who once refused the handshake, is now publicly celebrating the man who gave the handshake. Brunson, who modeled his playoff mentality on LeBron's, embodied a kind of grace that LeBron has since grown into. Writers noted that what's less set in stone is the kind of player Wembanyama will embody going forward, a petty Larry Bird or a gracious LeBron James. That framing, using LeBron's current reputation as the benchmark for grace, tells you how much James' public persona has evolved. And it's that evolved LeBron, the analyst, the student of the game, the respectful competitor who is making announcements about Brunson trades. And those announcements land very differently than they would have in 2009. A 24-year-old LeBron making trade commentary. People would have dismissed it as self-interest. A 41-year-old LeBron with 4 rings, a film studio, a skills academy, a media empire, and a kid in the NBA. That's an institution speaking. When he says something about Brunson's trade value or what that Knicks core should look like going forward, it moves markets, it shifts conversations, it puts names in play. The parade was the moment all of these threads converged into something you couldn't script. The Knicks went up New York City's famous Canyon of Heroes for a massive ticker tape parade celebrating the 2026 NBA championship. An estimated 2 million fans lined Broadway from Battery Park to City Hall, and Mayor Zoran Mamdani presented the Knicks players, coaches, and front office members with keys to the city following one of the largest parades in the city's history. Brunson spoke last at City Hall as the fans chanted MVP, MVP. The NBA Finals MVP thanked Knicks owner James Dolan and the front office for believing in a kid that no one else would. That line, a kid that no one else would, that's the entire journey compressed into 11 words. The second round pick, the laughed at contract offer from Dallas, the Knicks critics, the doubters, everyone who said he couldn't lead a team like this, couldn't do what LeBron-type players do. All of it compressed into that one sentence. And then Brunson closed by saying, "There's a lot of people that have a lot of negative things to say. There's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions. But when you prove them wrong, you don't have to say expletive to them." 2 million people roared. New York roared. And somewhere in the crowd of reactions, LeBron James was watching a man handle the biggest moment of his career with a combination of fire and restraint that LeBron recognized deeply. Because LeBron wrote that same chapter himself in Cleveland, in Miami, in Cleveland again, in Los Angeles. He knows exactly what that moment tastes like. Championships don't end the conversation. They restart it. The morning after the parade confetti gets swept off Broadway, the front offices open their laptops, the agents start making calls, and the very Knicks core that just won it all becomes the subject of 100 new trade rumors and roster construction debates. And at the center of every single one of those conversations, LeBron James, a free agent, a future Hall of Famer, a man with no fallback, sitting in California deciding where he wants to play next. The Lakers' situation is genuinely uncertain. If LeBron James wishes to remain with the Los Angeles Lakers and return for another season, he will have no choice but to settle on a contract that is not on a max level. That's not a small thing. LeBron has always been paid at the top of the market. The idea that his home team is essentially telling him to take a discount, while simultaneously floating sign and trade scenarios that would ship him to Cleveland, does not sit quietly in LeBron's world. And his representatives are being deliberate about every move. Thanks to a report from ESPN's Ramona Shelburne, we know where James stands with the Lakers in late June. LA is the first team he can talk to since he's their free agent, Shelburne said Monday. Her understanding is that they had initial conversations with LeBron's representative, but he has not even fully committed to returning next year. Those conversations were described as keeping in touch. That is the most non-committal language possible from a man who just played his 23rd NBA season. He's not saying yes. He's not saying no, he's watching. And what he's watching is a league that just reshuffled its deck. The Knicks won it all. The Lakers got swept by OKC. The Cavaliers, who were supposedly a destination for LeBron, got swept by Brunson. The Warriors have Jimmy Butler recovering from a torn ACL. The Warriors also feature one of James's best friends in Draymond Green, and another former finals foe in Butler, while pairing with Curry would create a spectacle and bring even more buzz to James's final stage. Every door is still open. None of them feel like certainty. The Knicks scenario is the most complicated, not because it's impossible. It might be the most basketball sense scenario available, but because of what it would require. The Knicks' current core is building together, and adding James would put New York fully in win-now mode, which would make for the highest of thrills if they won the title again together, but could hurt his reputation with Knicks fans forever if the team failed. And he became known as the reason the franchise reconfigured what had been its most promising roster in decades. That's the trap. You don't disrupt a championship team lightly. And this is exactly the tension at the core of LeBron's announcement about Brunson. When LeBron speaks about what makes Brunson's core untouchable, when he goes on record praising the Knicks guard in terms that border on reverence, he's sending a signal to every front office in the league. He is saying in the language that basketball people understand, don't touch that core. Don't scatter what they built, because if LeBron ends up in New York, he wants to arrive into something intact, not something dismantled. The financial architecture of the Knicks situation is worth examining up close because it tells you how seriously the organization takes this window. Brunson's 4-year, $156.5 million extension runs through 2028-29 with a player option built in. He sacrificed $100 million to give the team flexibility, and that flexibility is now the engine of every roster decision New York makes. You can't trade away the guy who built the engine. You can't disrupt the foundation of a machine that just proved it works. But proposals keep coming from the outside. A blockbuster trade was proposed that would send Karl Anthony Towns to Milwaukee in exchange for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Sports Illustrated proposed that the Knicks should pursue a blockbuster deal for one of the NBA's top superstars in Milwaukee Bucks, forward Giannis. The argument, his interior presence would give Brunson and every other Knick more looks on the perimeter. And if that's what it takes to get arguably the best player in the league, that's what New York needs to do. Bold, ambitious, and completely at odds with the culture that just won the championship. The counter to that argument, the Knicks just won with Towns. With that exact core, the argument for blowing up a championship team, even for Giannis, runs directly into the wall of LeBron's public comments about Brunson's core. LeBron has been crystal clear in every breakdown, every podcast, every public statement. Brunson winning with this group, in this way, is what makes it meaningful. You don't scatter that for a bigger name. You protect it. And then there's the contract situation from the Dallas side that keeps resurfacing as context. The Mavs are getting ripped for letting Brunson go in the summer of 2022, and critics are now pairing that goof with the ridiculous decision in 2025 to trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers. 2 generational mistakes in the span of 3 years. 2 players who are now either champions or challenging for it. And Dallas starting over. LeBron watched both of those Dallas decisions unfold. He's now playing alongside Doncic in Los Angeles, or at least he was until the hamstring ended Luka's postseason before it really started. And he's been watching Brunson, the player Dallas let walk for nothing, hold a trophy and make history. The lesson isn't subtle, it's screaming. Teams that don't protect their foundational players, that prioritize short-term flexibility over long-term commitment, end up watching championships happen somewhere else. That's why when LeBron speaks about Brunson's trade situation, he's not just commenting as a fan. He's commenting as a veteran who has lived the exact same story from the inside. A player whose front office made decisions around him, sometimes right and sometimes catastrophically wrong. As Brunson's agent Bernie Lee put it, Brunson will be remembered for the rest of his natural life and beyond for taking an incredible risk and leading one of the marquee teams in the NBA to a championship. Lee added, "I have always said that a person can win anywhere, but winning in New York is entirely different." LeBron knows that sentence in his bones. He's been the person who made that kind of gamble work. He sees Brunson as a mirror. The White House situation added another complicated layer to an already complicated summer. The New York Knicks are planning to visit the White House. Owner James Dolan confirmed by saying, "We just did receive an invitation from the White House, which we accepted. We still have to figure out the details." This would mark a first for an NBA Finals winner during President Trump's time in office. But Brunson's own position was notably non-committal. In a recent article by New York Magazine, Brunson appeared non-committal when asked about a White House trip, simply saying, "We haven't discussed it." A championship team with multiple players holding their own views on a politically charged invitation, an owner who invited the president to Game 3, and a star player who's not tipping his hand. Knicks owner Dolan is friendly with President Trump and hosted him in his suite for Game 3 of the NBA Finals against the Spurs, when Trump was booed by the Madison Square Garden crowd. For LeBron, who has made his political positions publicly clear over the course of his career, this is yet another dimension of the Knicks' calculus. A potential arrival in New York is not just a basketball decision. It's a cultural statement. It's a declaration about what your last chapter looks like. And the White House question, who goes, who doesn't, how the team navigates the politics of a political invitation, is the kind of friction that follows a franchise for years. LeBron has been in the middle of those storms before. He knows how to read them. The numbers that Brunson put up in the postseason cement exactly why LeBron's admiration is so pointed. Brunson became only the third player since 2000 to record 5 straight postseason games, with 35 or more points against a single opponent, joining LeBron James and Stephen Curry. Read that sentence again. The company he kept. LeBron James, Steph Curry. That's the tier. That's the conversation. And Brunson got there not with LeBron's physical gifts or Curry's absurd range. He got there through footwork, through IQ, through the relentless belief that preparation beats athleticism when the lights are brightest. Coach Becky Hammon, who'd been one of the doubters before the championship, placed Brunson's name in that conversation herself. Hammon assessed that Brunson proved history wrong and is an outlier, placing his name next to Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas. As a championship-winning small guard who defied the conventional wisdom about what size means at the point guard position, Isaiah Thomas. That's the Knicks' greatest historical frame of reference for a small elite point guard winning a championship. Brunson doesn't just match it, he surpasses it, doing it in New York, the hardest market in the world. And LeBron's announcement about Brunson operates in that exact space. It's not just good player, good run. It's a full endorsement of Brunson as the kind of player you build a dynasty around, the kind of player you don't trade away, don't restructure around, and don't second guess. When LeBron says something publicly that carries that weight, it shapes the decisions of front offices who know that LeBron's next destination is still undecided. If LeBron endorses your core, you protect your core, because the king might be coming. This is the part of the story where the future and the present smash into each other at full speed. LeBron James has one more decision to make, maybe the biggest of his career. Not because of the basketball stakes, but because of what it means for how his story ends. By opting into his contract for 2025-26, James set himself up to be a free agent without a fallback option, signaling uncertainty over whether this would be his final NBA season, or potentially just his final one in a Lakers uniform. The floor is gone. Whatever comes next is a choice, not a default. And the choice involves Brunson, not just as a potential teammate or a competitor, but as a measuring stick. LeBron has spent his entire career measuring himself against the greatest players in the game. Jordan, Kobe, Bird, Magic. And now, in the final chapter, he's watching a 29-year-old point guard do what LeBron has done 4 times. Lead a city to a championship through sheer will, intelligence, and the ability to rise when the moment demands it most. That kind of recognition doesn't happen in silence. LeBron made his announcement about Brunson in public, on his platforms, in his breakdowns, and through his representatives' movements, because that's how LeBron operates. Everything deliberate, everything layered. Rich Paul's announcement about LeBron's opt-in sparked immediate speculation about James's future and remained a water cooler conversation topic in NBA circles for months. Every word from LeBron's camp is calculated, so when he praises Brunson's core, when he publicly endorses the Knicks' architecture, he's not being casual. He's negotiating in plain sight. The Cleveland scenario, which is still very much alive, adds another dimension that brings the Brunson story full circle. Bleacher Report's Eric Pincus outlined a sign and trade that would allow LeBron to orchestrate his third stint with his hometown Cleveland Cavaliers, envisioning the move giving Cleveland a better chance to get over the hump in the Eastern Conference while also saving money. But here's the problem with that scenario. The Cavaliers were swept by the Knicks. By Brunson, in 4 games with a 22-point deficit overcome in Game 1 and a 37-point blowout to close the series. The argument is that the Cavaliers must believe they've hit a wall with the Evan Mobley-Jarrett Allen pairing and are highly motivated to bring James home to finish his career. But would LeBron go back to a team that just got demolished by the team he seems to most admire? Does that math work emotionally for a man who has never made a move, without calculating the championship probability down to the decimal? The answer, based on everything LeBron has said and done this summer, seems to be leaning toward no. All-star LeBron James will speak to the Lakers first amid this summer's free agency. And in the meantime, James' representatives have been in steady communication with the Lakers, according to ESPN's Ramona Shelburne. The process is deliberate. The Lakers get first right of refusal, and whatever LeBron decides next will be based on where he thinks he can actually compete. For the thing he's never gotten enough of, another championship ring. The Warriors' option continues to simmer. Before the Lakers played Golden State earlier in the season, Warriors coach Steve Kerr was asked how much personal attention he was paying toward whether James would make 2025-26 his final season. Kerr said, "I don't have an investment in it, other than I know how good he is for the NBA. And so what's good for the NBA is good for every team. So whenever he retires, we're going to miss him. And other than that, I don't have anything personally invested, but the relationship that we have from the Olympics means that we'll always share that together." That's a carefully worded non-answer from a coach who has spent decades in big market basketball. Kerr doesn't say no. He says he's not invested in the outcome, which is coach speak for the door is open. And Draymond Green, LeBron's friend and former finals rival turned teammate at the Olympics, is right there in Golden State. Pairing with Curry, the defining foil of the second half of James's career, would create a spectacle and bring even more buzz to James's final stage. LeBron versus Curry, the rivalry that defined an era, becoming LeBron and Curry, the partnership that closes it. The symmetry is undeniable, but symmetry doesn't win championships, and LeBron knows that better than anyone, which circles back inevitably to New York and to Brunson, because the Knicks represent something none of the other options can offer: a proven championship system, a ready-made winning culture, relationships that predate the NBA, and a player, Brunson, who has already shown he can carry a franchise through the fire. LeBron wouldn't have to rebuild anything. He wouldn't have to be the alpha. He could be exactly what the moment requires, a veteran champion who adds the missing piece to a puzzle that's already nearly complete. The generation gap between LeBron and Brunson is worth sitting with for a moment. LeBron is 41, Brunson is 29. 12 years separates them, exactly the same gap that separated LeBron from the veterans he played alongside early in his career when he first arrived in Cleveland as a teenager. Those veterans gave LeBron a foundation. They showed him what winning culture looked like from the inside. And now LeBron, at the end of his career, is positioned to potentially play that exact role for someone else's championship window. That symmetry is not lost on LeBron. He's built an entire second career around legacy. Spring Hill Company, his production deals, Bronny's NBA path, the Skills Academy, Mind the Game. Everything he does is intentional, crafted, narrative aware. And the narrative of LeBron James arriving in New York to play alongside the man who borrowed his zero dark 30 method, who leads with the same competitive fire, but without LeBron's physical gifts, who proved everyone wrong in the city. That makes proving people wrong feel like a religion. That narrative practically writes itself. And LeBron knows it. As Brunson's agent said, winning in New York is entirely different. LeBron James won in Cleveland. He won in Miami. He won in Los Angeles. The one place on that list that isn't there, New York, the biggest market, the most historic franchise in the sport, the city that eats players alive and occasionally makes gods out of them. LeBron, who has always understood his place in history, knows what a New York championship would add to his legacy in a way that a fifth ring in Cleveland or Golden State simply wouldn't. So what does the announcement actually mean? The moment LeBron went on record about the Brunson trade situation, here's what we know. LeBron publicly stated that Brunson proved that small guards can still have a massive impact on winning at the highest level. He broke down the Knicks-Spurs series on his own platform while the finals were happening. He's maintained close personal ties to multiple key Knicks front office figures for decades. His agent has been in keeping in touch conversations with the Lakers while keeping every other door open. And his comments about Brunson's core have been, without exception, protective, framed as "don't touch this" rather than "this is available." What that adds up to is a message being sent to every front office in the league. The Knicks core, Brunson specifically, is the standard. Not a trade piece, not a chip to be moved for a bigger name, not a casualty of ambition, the standard. And any team that wants to attract LeBron James in the summer of 2026 needs to understand that the first thing he's evaluating is whether you protect your foundational players, the way New York protected Brunson, or whether you make decisions like Dallas made about Brunson. And like Dallas made about Doncic, chasing upside while burning down what you already have. LeBron's announcement, in other words, is not just about Brunson. It's about LeBron. It's about what kind of situation he wants to walk into. It's about a 41-year-old man who has seen every version of front office competence and dysfunction, who has been on winning teams and stranded teams, who has carried franchises and been failed by them, making a public statement about the kind of place he's willing to bring his gifts to finish. And that place, based on everything he's said and done this summer, looks a lot like Penn Plaza, looks a lot like Madison Square Garden, looks a lot like Jalen Brunson's city. There's one final thread that ties all of this together and that tells you something deep about where Brunson stands in the larger basketball universe right now. At the 2026 NBA Draft, incoming prospect Darius Acuff Jr. praised Brunson's championship run and what it meant for smaller guards entering the league. Brunson led the Knicks to their first championship in 53 years and won Finals MVP, giving smaller scoring guards a recent example of success on the biggest stage. Acuff, a 19-year-old rookie who hadn't played a single NBA game, wasn't talking about LeBron. As his model, he was talking about Brunson. That shift in who younger players look to as proof of what's possible. That's a seismic cultural moment in the NBA. Acuff said, "It's great to see a guard like that go to work. Us, 6'2", 6'3" guards, we got heart. So just to see him go out there and play and prove everybody wrong, that was great to watch." The next generation has a new reference point, and LeBron, who built his career in part on becoming the reference point for every generation that followed, is watching that shift happen in real time. His response to it is the announcement. His response to it is the public praise, the platform breakdowns, the protective language about Brunson's core, and the very pointed silence about his own next move. LeBron James doesn't speak carelessly. He never has. When he puts Brunson's name in his mouth, when he puts Brunson's style of play next to the all-time greats in his own public analysis, he's not just giving props. He's drawing a map. He's telling everyone who's paying attention where the basketball universe is heading, who the anchor of that universe is going to be, and perhaps most importantly, what role LeBron James himself intends to play in it. The announcement was never just about the trade. It was about the legacy. It was about the handoff. It was the king acknowledging that a new king has arrived. And what happens next is going to be one of the great stories the NBA has ever told. Jalen Brunson left money on the table for New York. He gave back $100 million in earning potential because he believed in the machine they were building together. His agent Bernie Lee said he will be remembered for the rest of his natural life and beyond for taking an incredible risk and leading one of the marquee teams in the NBA to a championship. That risk paid off in the most complete way possible. A ring, an MVP, a parade through the Canyon of Heroes, and the kind of standing in New York that athletes spend entire careers trying to earn and usually never get. LeBron James is now on the other side of that same kind of decision. Where does he take his final chapter? Who does he trust with the last pages of the greatest individual basketball story ever told? And does he believe, truly believe, that walking into the building Brunson built, into the culture Brunson established, into the championship-hardened locker room Brunson forged, does he believe that's where the story should end? We don't have the answer yet. What we have is the announcement, LeBron's public acknowledgement that Brunson and the Knicks represent something that shouldn't be touched, something that should be protected, and something that the rest of the league should be chasing rather than dismantling. When Brunson stood at City Hall with 2 million New Yorkers screaming behind him and said, "Damn New York, we really did it, man. We really did it. I wouldn't trade this for the world." LeBron James heard that, and somewhere in the machinery of the most deliberate decision-making process in sports history, something shifted. The summer is just getting started.